Hi guys, welcome to something interesting. What I have today is picking up a few unusual traditions in the world and talk about them. It just kind of gives us a sense of how different people are and certain indigenous tribes, what kind of cultures they have, and I've picked up 5 interesting traditions and I'm going to share those with you. The first one is a bit painful, but it's actually the tradition of finger cutting, and it's a tradition which takes place in the Dani tribe in Indonesia, and the whole practice is to show sorrow and pain when a family member dies, and typically women will be the ones which will have to cut off a segment of their finger, and that actually shows that they are in pain. And on top of that, it is to ward off disaster, because they see death as disaster. So to ward off the next disaster, they will actually cut off a segment of their finger. Even men would indulge in this practice, especially if they've lost a child. So parents would cut a finger, family members, and it's basically to ward off trouble and pain, and they don't want anything bad coming to their family. So it's a painful one, but the good thing about it is that it's not something which is done now, so it's not so popular. But if you look at it, it's, I think, one of the stranger kind of traditions that I have at least encountered. Then there's another one. They're the sworn virgins of Albania, and this is I think there's a movie which is also coming out which talks about this, or at least has a character depicting one of the sworn virgins. And what warrants a woman to become a man, because the sworn virgins will actually take a vow of chastity and they will become men. It is something that could happen when they are young, or even in older age they could actually take this promise of becoming a man. And some of the reasons why a woman wants to become a man for the rest of her life is either if she wants to avoid an arranged marriage, or maybe at times when she has had a bad marriage and she wants to walk out of it. And at times when a family does not have a boy or a male, they will want a girl to take the role of a male, and that would empower her or make it easier for her to do certain jobs that are only assigned for men, or even own property, do her own business, take decisions on behalf of the family. So these are the reasons why some women will actually swear celibacy and become men. Usually this vow is taken in front of the elders of the tribe, but at times a woman could do it on her own, and she would do so by cutting her hair, and that from her side is actually taking on the responsibility and the role of being a man. And then she's no longer inhibited from any societal norms that will dictate a woman's actions, and she will be seen by society as a male and be referred to as a male, and her life will be just like a man, and she'll dress like a man, act like a man, behave like a man. So I thought that was a very, very interesting and strange tradition, and it's practiced to date, but it's not, again, very popular, and there are very few sworn virgins now left, and most of them are over 50. So that was on the sworn virgins of Albania. There's a third one which I again thought was very, very strange, but apparently a very popular one, and it's it is disturbing. It's not slightly disturbing, it is disturbing. It's the tradition. Well, it's disturbing from our perspective, but maybe not so disturbing for those practicing it, and probably there's a rationale for it, and that's bride kidnapping. Kidnapping a girl to make her your wife. So it's nothing like going down on one knee and promising her love and fidelity and lots of babies. It's actually kidnapping her and picking her up and forcefully bringing her home while she screams and fights and shouts and cries. And it's a practice which has happened in Africa, countries like Rwanda, Kenya, and a lot of Central Asian countries, and it's something which is practiced in Kyrgyzstan, in Chechnya. So it's actually a tradition that to date exists. It's seen as a crime, it's illegal, but it is still practiced because they feel it's important to them, and it's a part of who they are, and a part of their tradition, and a part of their custom. And as a matter of fact, it's in Kyrgyzstan, for instance, a girl would be kidnapped. The boy will bring the girl into his house. The elders will be present. The women will try to console the girl, and one of the older women will try to place a handkerchief on her head. And should that handkerchief be placed on her head, that means that she says, "Okay, I'm fine, and I am all right with this marriage, and I take this man as my husband." And there are very, very few. Of course, the struggle takes place, and in a warped way, it's supposed to. It kind of shows the girl's innocence and that she is naive, but if a girl really gets upset and says she does not want to go ahead with it and does not let the women put the handkerchief on her head, then it's not taken so well by the other women, and she may even be cursed, and even her family might not take it so well. So it's a pretty lose situation for the women, and a lot of them believe that they will not marry the man they love because they might be just kidnapped by somebody else randomly while walking to work or school, and they will have to accept the man who kidnaps them. So I may not understand this tradition, however it exists, and in many countries it is an offense, it is illegal, and in some places it is also seen as considered a sex crime. So it's just not a way of marriage, but it's actually seen as a crime. Nonetheless, it exists. I have another one which I believe a lot of you may have heard of and seen in the movies. It is of seppuku or harakiri, which is a form of a Japanese ritual of suicide. And seppuku was originally only for the samurais, and it's a code for the samurai warriors, and it was used for them to avoid falling into the hands of the enemy, and rather than bearing torture or humiliation that they have actually been captured, they would commit harakiri. And harakiri is basically stomach cutting. So the warrior will sit down, he'll be given his favorite meal, and he will take a knife and stab himself, and then go right left, so it ensures that the wound becomes fatal. And in some cases bring the head forward, so somebody else could actually decapitate the warrior. So it's a bit severe, but it actually is a code for the samurais, and it's actually an act which will save you from disgrace. So it's seen with a lot of honor, and honestly speaking, I think it takes a lot of courage to commit harakiri. So that was an interesting tradition. Nonetheless, again, a painful one. There's another one which is of self-mummification, and this tradition, though it's not very popular, and there are only around 15 to 20 Buddhist monks that have been found who've actually remains of them who've committed self-mummification. And as you can just understand, just self-mummification could be a very difficult thing to do. So it's scattered throughout northern Japan, and about 2,000 mummies, as I said, have been found. And the monks were called as Sukishin Butsus. And it was, for the monks, it was the ultimate act of self-denial, and it was an idea of enlightenment through physical punishment. So there were 3 steps to this process of self-mummification, and it really was leading themselves to mummification through a change of diet. So, and it took them around 1,000 days, a period of 1,000 days to get to the point of mummifying themselves. And initially, their diet would only consist of nuts, and they would eat they would do physical hardship. There would be all sorts of work that would be normal work that they would indulge in, but they would only eat nuts and seeds, and it was very, very limited. So what would happen was that all the body fat and the meat would kind of just completely reduce to nothing. And in the second phase, they actually restricted themselves to very, very small amounts of food, and that included bark of a tree and roots. So it's virtually eating nothing, and they had to endure this for another 1,000 days. And the priest by now used to look like a living skeleton, and the moisture from the body would go away. And the last stage, which is kind of really, really torturous, is where they would make a special tea for themselves. And this tea was made from the sap of a tree, and it was usually used to lacquer bowls and furniture. So it was poisonous to drink it, but it kind of ensured that the poison in the priest's body would kill any maggots or any other insects that might want to eat the priest when it's dead. And in the last process, the monks would isolate themselves into a stone room, which was only large enough for one man to sit in a lotus style, and there would be a bell. So while the monk was alive, he would ring the bell, and when the bell stopped ringing, people would know that the monk has died, and they would put him into a tomb and seal it off. And the supply of the air, and the priest also had a tube through which he could breathe, and the tube would be removed, and some bodies would rot while others would actually be mummified, and the ones that were mummified raised to the rank of being the Buddha, and the ones that rotted away for whatever reason were again respected for their incredible act of endurance, but were not considered to be the Buddha, and they were sealed back into their tombs. So that was one of the last ones that I found, and the good news is that the Japanese government actually outlawed this practice, and I think it's a really difficult one, but nonetheless a very, very interesting one. So we may have some very bizarre traditions around us, but that's the way we are. So that's something interesting for you. Till next time, bye bye.